let's explore how to edit wildlife photos. Now, there are going to be 5 tips that we're going to talk about. The first one is how we're going to balance exposure and contrast. Then we're going to add just like a subtle, a natural texture to the scene. And adjust color and tone. Then I'm going to show you throughout the exercise how we're going to use masking to draw focus to our subject. In this case, it's going to be this fox. And then last, we'll finish off with cleaning up any distractions in the scene. All right, so those are going to be the 5 tips. Let's jump right in. Now, the first thing I want to do is create a virtual copy just so we can do the before and after when we're finished. Now, let's design with the end in mind. So I'm going to crop this image, and I like how the original looks. Well, we could do a 4x5, which will give us an 8x10. But what I want to do is I want to make this into more of a 16, let's say by 24 image. So I just like how it looks, almost like panoramic. In fact, if we did come down here like a 16x9, I love how this looks. But the problem with that, it's too hard to find a printer that does 16x10. So let's go back to a nice 16x24. Good. And there we have it. All right. So I have that set. Now the first step, balance. For the balance exposure and contrast, let's go into the develop module. And I'm going to use auto adjustment to let it help me determine what it thinks it's going to look good at. And it did a pretty good job. I do want to bring back the highlights down a little bit more. And I'm going to enrich the black tone. So that was a good, auto adjust was a good starting point. Ooh, that looks good. Now let's go on to adding a little texture to this scene. Now, the texture I want to add, there's several ways of doing this, is I want to add it to the fox itself. So I'm going to use Structure AI. Now watch this. Boost is going to increase the finer details in the image, whereas the amount is going to deal with the entire image. Well, that's way too much. So let's just do a little bit for the amount. And I want to add boost. See, really what I'm trying to do is get the fur looking good. I really don't want to apply it to the entire image. So instead of masking at this point, let's do something a little bit different. Let's come down here to blur. So where we added texture, we're going to take away that same texture on the background. So I'm going to apply a global change to the entire image. Now this is where that masking to help us draw attention is going to come in. I'll use a radial gradient. And I'm going to apply it onto the fox. Now, by doing it this way, that blur is going to be applied to the fox. Well, we want the opposite. We're going to invert it. Now look what just happened. We applied that blur effect. We took away that texture around the background. So just so you can see what we just did, look at that. So we applied this a little bit of the blur effect to the background, but not to the fox. And each step of the way, we'll use the visibility icon, the quick preview, to see our results. Let's see what we got so far. We started with this, and it's shaping up really well. Now, let's go to our color and tone. And much like anything else, there's several ways we can do this. A real easy, simple way would be to use the mood tool. And we're going to use a LUT. Well, I'm going to come down to the creative section. And look, just go through these and look for which one you like the best. I like smoky, and smoky's going to help me with the color. And now with the tone, we're going to adjust the contrast a bit. I love it, but you know what I don't want? I don't want it on the fox's face. So let's go to mask, erase, but I'm not going to use 100%. I'm going to come down to maybe 50% and just gradually erase it from the face. I'm going to go a little bit more. I really don't want it on the eyes as much. There we go. Look at that. Nice. And you know what? While we're here, to add to that color and tone, let's use the Miscal tool. And again, watch this. Look, I love what it's doing to the fur. And I love what it's doing around, but I'm not liking what it's doing to the face. And let's do a little more of the warmth. There we go. Look at that. Look how it brought the warmth back in. All right, mask again. Here's where we're doing that masking to draw focus. This time, I'm going to erase it. And we'll go to a little bit lower strength. So erase it on the face area. So I want the eyes to really jump out at us. Yeah, look at that. There we go. And if I want to bring it back, I'll just hit paint and then just dial it back in just a little bit. There we go. All right, great. Now, one last tip here is where we're going to continue to draw attention to the subject before I remove the distraction of this branch sticking out of his head. Let's come to the Vignette tool. I'm going to choose the subject, and I'm just going to give it just a subtle vignette. And then this right here is what's really going to help me, is that inner light. Let's see if it makes a difference. Look how it's drawing attention to the fox. Now, before we remove any of this distraction, let's click on Edits, which think of this as your history right up here. And I'm just going to walk through the edits that we did. Here's Develop. I like it here, but you know what? I am going to bump up shadows a little bit more. So notice this is all non-destructive. Structure came out pretty good. And then we blurred the rest of it. Good. Ooh, let's dial this back just a little bit. And actually, you know what? Keep it. Let's desaturate it just a touch. There we go. And Mystical is going to really help. And then there's our vignette. Great. So now that we have it all set, let's get rid of that distraction. Now we could use the traditional erase tool, but this is going to be using proximity. Instead, let's go over here and we're going to use Gen Erase, because this is a newer technology. And what Gen Erase is going to do for us, it's going to look at the entire image, and it's, instead of using what's closest or proximity around the branches, it's going to look at the entire image and figure out what it feels it's going to look the best with it. So in cases like this, when you see there's a lot of distractions all over the place, Gen Erase does a better job, and we can keep applying to it. So if I don't like what it did, so let's look at before and after. It did a great job, but still, there's that little section. So I could just revert, select it, hit erase, and again, I could just do this a few times until I get exactly what I'm looking for. Let's see. Oh, that looks good. No, I'm going to do it one more time. Reset. It's right up in here I don't like. And erase. And by the way, I could deselect if I missed, let's say, this spot here, or I can reselect a little bit more. It's just ways down to use the tool itself. All right, so let's see what it's going to do. And again, if I don't like it, I'll just keep hitting erase again. Let's see what it looks like. Okay, that's good. All right, ready? Before, there it is sticking out of his head. There, that looks much better. Save. Now, when we save this, look what it does. It puts it into Gen Creation. Well, I don't want it there. I want to bring it right back where I have the original. So I'm going to drag and drop it, and there we have it. So let's look at what we just did here. Here's the original we created. Then we created a virtual copy, and then we finish it off here. So if I click the original and I click on the final product, and if I view it, now I'm only going to be able to view those two images. So there it is. There's the original. And there it is, adding those 5 simple steps. So once again, let's review them. So we balanced the exposure. We added a subtle, natural texture by adding it and taking it away. We improved the color and the tone. And then throughout the tutorial, we worked on masking to draw focus the subject. And then, of course, we finished off with cleaning up the distraction. And I gave you a couple ways on how to do that. Once again, if you use the traditional erase, which is fine, it's using proximity. Complicated backgrounds like this, use Gen Erase. All right? I hope that helps. Please leave comments below if you have any questions whatsoever about what we did. And keep in mind, this was one way of doing it. There are many tools that we have that accomplish what we just did. Hopefully this will broaden it for you and make your next wildlife photos look absolutely amazing.